do business in a wonderful place, a great place to raise a family. You know what? There's more of them out there that aren't on this list, but they're going to be. They're going to be. For example, Technographics. Seems like it was only a month or so ago that probably most of us in here were over helping Dee and Mary celebrate the opening of their beautiful new building. It was quite a night. And when you look around, I can't see with the lights in my eyes, but if you look around, I think you're going to see some of the great names: D&S Distribution, Tech4, Worcester Motorways. I had some notes here. GNS Titanium, Tricor Industrial, and most certainly a company that I've been fortunate to have an almost 20-year relationship with. I call it Worcester's best kept secret, the Western Reserve Group of insurance companies, who also this year, believe it or not, is celebrating their 100th anniversary. It's quite an accomplishment this day and age. Well, I think you all would agree with me that Worcester is certainly blessed to have such a fine corporate base from which our community can carry on. All in all, this microphone is not where I want it. I'm going to move it over here. I can't see my notes here. I should hold this thing. All in all, I feel like I've pretty much come full circle with Worcester. A little bit, albeit a little bit indirectly. My first contact with the Chamber was in the 1960s. I was introduced to a gentleman named Fred Neuenschwander, who was the former president of the Worcester Area Chamber of Commerce. Maybe some of you are old enough to remember Fred. He had been named the Director of Development for the state of Ohio by Ohio Governor James Rhodes, my uncle. I came to know Fred pretty well over the years, and he really was quite a guy. Very positive, very upbeat. And he was, this is really interesting. Dick Moore will know this. He was always, not always, but frequently, he was talking about Worcester, Ohio. He loved Worcester. It was his home, and what a great place to live and work it was. And honestly, I didn't even know where Worcester was. So I can see Fred today, even today, with his ever-present cigar. He never did smoke them. He chewed them, just like Murph does. And he said, great. Everything was great. Always great. But he loved Worcester. And he was always, when he was in the north end of Columbus, he oftentimes could pick up his favorite radio station, WWST Worcester, and he listened to the Farm Report. He loved it. Fred's passed on now, but I know he would be happy that I'm up here tonight being honored by the Chamber. So that's how I feel like I've come full circle with the Worcester Chamber. Before we go any further, let me tell you just a little bit about titanium. You saw some of it in the video tonight. Titanium is a chemical element. It's the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th most plentiful raw material in the world. In the ground, it's called ilmenite or rutile. And some of the largest known deposits of titanium are in Russia, Australia, South Africa, Brazil, and the United States. But as you might expect, not much of it is mined here. Too expensive. The process of taking the ore and turning it into ultimately mill products, sheet, plate, bar stock, all those things that companies like ours make things out of, is a very time-consuming and very expensive process. Currently, our prices are, to give you a good example, are above $50 a pound. It's really a very expensive material. But you know, it's a sexy material, and a lot of companies like to attach their name to it. Batteries, razors, bikes, watches, umbrellas. The umbrella that's there tonight it's from us and it says titanium, but you can bank on it. There's not much titanium in that thing, but that to my point, that's exactly what they do. They just latch on to the name. So if you've got a golf ball or ever had a golf ball that said it had titanium in it, trust me, there isn't any. Only golfers really are nuts enough to pay. You don't find this stuff very much in consumer products. It's just way too expensive, and other than golfers, nobody would be willing to pay for it. And truthfully, if you don't have a problem to solve, there's no reason to be using titanium. It's just a problem-solving metal, and its unique characteristics are what make it desirable. And while consumer products may in fact want to use it, it doesn't make any sense. It's not a very pretty metal. It's kind of a dull gray, and it doesn't look nice like stainless or aluminum or things that shine up and look very nice. Its three main characteristics which make it a unique problem-solving material, as you heard a little bit of it in the video, are this. It's lightweight and strong. It weighs about half what steel does. So it's the material of choice for the aircraft industry and the aerospace industry. The aircraft industry is just what you think. It's the airplanes. About 60% or maybe even a little more of these two new airplanes that Airbus and Boeing are building are made up of titanium. So they are, in a lot of ways, wreaking havoc with the industry because they've laid claim to so much of the mill time that it's driven the price up more than double. It'll settle down when the Asians stop buying those airplanes, but it's that's why you would want to use it. It's lightweight and strong. The satellite people, where we sell our parts, use it for the same reason. It's lightweight and strong. So whether they're using our hardware items, the fasteners, or the things that the circuitry that they might have on board, that's the very reason that they use it. They have to launch it up there, and the lighter the better. And they need strength up there. The second thing is it's non-corrosive in most atmospheres and conditions. So if you have a corrosion problem, for example, if you can conjure up in your mind the picture of those chemical refineries, petrochemical refineries, oil refineries that you might see down in the Gulf Coast areas, they're just massive piping assemblies that are refining and processing harsh chemicals to make gasolines or anything that gets used in the industries. So they deal with the corrosion, and they can afford the upfront cost of these products because to shut down these facilities is very expensive, and it costs them money. So those are the kinds of people that are willing to spend the money for it. To give you just a quick example of its non-corrosive properties, in 100% saltwater condition, stainless steel, a good grade of stainless steel, has a useful life that is measured in days or months. So with titanium, after 10 years, there's no measurable corrosion. So if you picture an oil rig, the bottom half of it that's undersea, and it's fastened together with big, heavy bolts or whatever else. Out of stainless, those things, to service the rigs or whatever, you'd probably have to use a cutting torch and cut those fasteners off there, where you can unscrew them and save them. The nice part about it, it's a little bit like being in the food chain, is they don't save them very often. So we're thankful for that, but they at least can take them apart pretty easily. The third thing is it's inert to the body chemistry. So we got lightweight and strong, we've got non-corrosive, and now we've got inert to the body chemistry. So what's going on there is that the things that we make that get implanted in the body to fix your body when it's broken, whether they're for neck injuries or a simple thing like bone screws when you've broken your bones, heart pacer terminal blocks, anything that used to be that would have been traumatic for the patient to have to go in and take them out and replace them with something. Those were the people that years ago used to use titanium, but it actually is, the use of it is exploding in the medical and the dental. You saw in the video the dental implants that we do. It has turned into a very, very rapidly growing business. It would be even bigger if the insurance companies paid for more of the surgery, but to my dentist friends out here, nobody wants to give up on the price. We certainly aren't going to lower our price any. We're very competitive. And the people that we make them for, all companies that you would recognize, they're certainly not going to give up their margins, and so they sell them to the dentist or the oral surgeons, and guess what? Those guys don't want to give up their margins either. So we're hopeful that somebody, one of those other two guys, gives up a little bit so the market can continue to get bigger and we can get those good old insurance companies to start paying for more of this stuff. Okay, so here we are, nestled in farm country in Worcester and Wayne County, Ohio. Just how did so many companies dealing in titanium end up in Worcester? I've been asked that question a lot over the years. Here's the answer. It started back in 1951 with a guy named Ed Funk. Ed was a Worcester native and an MIT graduate who had come back home with his doctorate in metallurgy and an idea that he wanted to do something with a little-known metal, titanium. Titanium itself had only become commercially viable with the development of what was known as the Kroll refining process, which allowed us to take the stuff, or allowed the industry to take the stuff that was mined out of the ground, create what was called sponge, titanium sponge. You've probably heard, some of you heard that reference, and it really does look like a sponge, an old-fashioned sponge, not one of these commercially, artificially produced ones. And from there to the ingots and the billets, and then on to the mill products, which we use and everybody else uses to make things, whether it's airplanes or anything, the sheet plate, the bar stock. Funk hooked up with a fellow MIT grad, Jim Johnson, ultimately forming Johnson and Funk Titanium Corporation. Initially, they worked out of Johnson's basement. Then they moved to the Kemro Avenue building in Worcester, where they focused on melting and producing bar stock and wire. The industry was in its infancy, so they were struggling around trying to find something to do with this new metal that had been discovered. That Kemro Avenue building incident just occurred to me. When we had the fire in 1977, we moved up to that whole same series of buildings, and it was in the floodplain. It's down there at the end by the fairgrounds. Guess what? It flooded every year, but it was better than being burned out, so we used it. Every year, Charlie and all the people, we'd take all the bottom drawers out of the desks and put them up till the floods receded. And well, back to my story. Johnson left the business in the mid-50s, but others came to work for Johnson and Funk. Among them, you probably won't know all these names, but you'll know a couple of them. Buford Riffey, Walt Doherty, Al Struther, Conrad Stitzline, and Roger Geiser. And because the titanium was really in its infancy, it was either feast or famine as far as work went. And it was during one of these downturns, that happened frequently, that people left. But most of them didn't leave the industry completely, the titanium industry completely. Riffey and Doherty formed R&D Metals in Apple Creek. It's now known as Titanium Industries, headquartered in New Jersey, and it's a large, multifaceted company devoted almost entirely to the titanium industry. Stitzline formed Astrofab Corporation, which later became Astro Metallurgical. Carlos Weekly started United Titanium Fabricators in Shreve. Geiser and Struther formed G&S Titanium. Johnson and Funk was sold a number of times, and the names were changed almost every time it got sold. But it's now part of the multi-billion-dollar Teledyne companies. Well, it was during one of these downturns, Astromet had made the decision not to pursue the machining of titanium. And since Carlos Weekly was a machinist, he left Astro. He thought there was a market for high-quality, lower-cost machined titanium. So in 1962, Carlos set up shop in an old feed mill in Shreve with one customer, using an obsolete war surplus lathe from the Shreve High School. That one customer, Center Circuits, later to be known as Chemcut Corporation, made chemical etching machines to make computer circuit boards, and its primary customer, probably his only customer, was IBM. So it was a very early use for titanium that ended up being a big use for it. Starting out making pump shafts and cooling coils for Chemcut, United Titanium developed ways to make fasteners when fasteners were needed. In those early years, each of these new titanium companies was doing something different. Astro Metallurgical concentrated on the fabrication of large parts. G&S Titanium focused on drawing wire. United Titanium's niche was fasteners. It was United Titanium's innovative nature that drove its early growth and continues to do so today. United Titanium solves problems and comes up with ways to make things work for our customers. Machining titanium is extremely difficult from any other metal that you might be seeing. It's very hard and takes different applications, different tools and stuff that the rest of the world doesn't have to deal with. But United Titanium figures out how to do it, and we do it extremely well. And as Fred Weekly so aptly puts it, United Titanium grew on its reputation of machining. My connection with United Titanium began in 1974. It was a very good year for me. That was the year that I made the decision to buy United Titanium. I think I fancied myself a budding entrepreneur after a couple of small successes in my home, Columbus, Ohio. So I was looking for another company to buy. United Titanium was brought to my attention by my friend and accountant in Columbus, John Rossler. Knowing nothing about titanium, including how to pronounce it, I said titanium. It's pronounced titanium. And wanting to know if it was a good option for me, I started asking around, friends, whoever I came in contact with, if they knew anybody that knew anything about titanium. Ironically, they led me to a professor in metallurgy at Ohio State University, none other than Dr. Ed Funk. Well, of course, Dr. Funk enthusiastically encouraged me to pursue my purchase of United Titanium. He thought the potential was unlimited for the manufacture of titanium and products made from titanium. And the truth is, he knew more about the industry and its history than my brain could absorb. He told me that it really, in his opinion, held unlimited possibilities. So with that bit of information in mind, I arranged for a visit. I came up, and I have to admit this to you. When my dad and I drove up to look at the facility in Shreve, I really had second thoughts. It was in an old feed mill, and honestly, it looked kind of like a dump, and I just wasn't sure my ego could stand that. I just couldn't see myself going to work there, and I didn't see how a place like that could be successful. So I did the only sensible thing. I put the car in reverse, turned around, went back home to Columbus, never got out of the car. That's a true story. A few weeks later, my friend Rossler prevailed upon me, and I guess you could say reason prevailed too. We returned for a real visit, my dad and I did. Actually, we visited a couple more times, getting acquainted with the business and the people that ran it. But one person in particular sealed the deal for me. That one person was Charlie Gray, who's here tonight. He convinced me that the business was not only sound, but it was a good buy. And for those of you who know Charlie's lust for keeping score on the golf course and then auditing the results, you'll appreciate it when I say to you that Charlie kept his own set of books. So I got to compare what the company that owned the place said and what they gave me with what Charlie said was gospel. And I guess that's all I ought to say about Charlie's bookkeeping skills. I bought the place. As our business continued to grow, we, like everybody else, started looking around for other ways to make money and other things to go into. And this same effort that you all make out there doing the same things in your business led to the variety of different businesses and industries that we serve. And it has allowed our business to grow very nicely. We produce satellite parts and submarine parts and medical and dental implants, skull pins, parts for the pollution control, the petrochemical industries. You saw the submarine parts. We make a lot of submarine parts. You know, submarines, their fire retardant systems pump salt water through those things. So they use a lot of titanium. And the smaller sub that we featured in the video there, the Navy SEAL sub team, that's a relatively new product. Well, we've been working on it for about 7 years, but it's just starting to get rolling. The way the Navy SEALs normally do it is they take these SEALs in on small boats or rafts and they drop them off to do their work, and then those people had to travel over land. The SEALs had to travel over land and rendezvous somewhere else to get picked up. Well, this submarine, which is powered by electric batteries, allows them to take them in very quietly about 100 yards offshore, drop them off, and then it waits for them, and it can take them back to the mother sub. So we have a lot of parts in those things, including the fastening systems that hold it to the nuclear submarines, which they are attached to. It's really kind of sexy stuff. And since Ralph Regal is here, I want to talk to him tonight about the defense budget, because the Navy says they don't have money to do all those things we want them to do. Ralph? You saw in the video our parts have turned up in some pretty unusual places. NASCAR, I'm a NASCAR guy, so I'm really happy that at least the guys that I cheer for use our parts. They have a limited amount of titanium that they're allowed to use in the cars, and hopefully we sell them everything we can sell them. The America's Cup yachts, which is kind of cool, those guys are really fools with their money. They'll buy anything and pay anything for them. It's a shame that race only comes around every 4 years, because it's been good to us. Those silly little fighting robots that you saw, I've never seen them on TV, but those people bring them in and they demonstrate them for the employees, and they bang into things and crash things, and I can't believe anybody would watch that, but somebody does. You know, it has never ceased to fascinate me how many tens of thousands of different ways there are to make a living in this country. I know I'm not the only guy that gets into other people's plants and businesses and talking to them, and probably 90% of you all do the same thing. It's just absolutely amazing to me what goes on out there, and even in our own community. Think about the wide range of things that we do. It's just, we're really blessed to have what we have in our wonderful little community here. Okay. Did I tell you I was going to use the minutes that that Bob didn't, because I just feel like I'm getting started now. And not only do I thank the Chamber for this nice honor, but I would be remiss, and I really need to thank my best friend, my beautiful wife, Stephanie. She has always been there for me. She puts up with a lot of whatever over the years. She never complains. And when I bought the business and we moved up here, she moved up without complaint. We had just moved into a brand new house, our first. We'd never had a house before. And I'm sure I told her that it was only going to be for a year or two until I got my arms around the business, and then we go back home to Columbus. Well, 1 year turned into 2, and 2 turned into 3, and guess what? Worcester's home. And I wouldn't trade it. It's where we've raised our beautiful daughters, Amy and Robin. They are Worcester Generals, eating Cochi House pizza, which only kids that are raised here can put up with that garlic, but I love Joe, but I can't deal with that garlic. Finally, I want to thank the employees of United Titanium, whose dedication and hard work have really made us what we are today. And I especially need to take just a minute and introduce 2 very important people to you, Charlie Gray and Fred Weekly. I've always believed that business is a team sport, but in every sport, in every business, there are standouts. Players whose names are highlighted in bold or always have an asterisk beside them. Well, for me and for United Titanium, Charlie and Fred are 2 of those superstars. I want to ask them to stand, and then I want to tell you how invaluable they have been to the success of our company. Not only for their leadership, but for their instincts and clarity of vision when it came to what we were and what we could become. So if you would do me the honor, I'd like Fred and Charlie to stand up and just say thank you for them publicly for me. Charlie, Fred.